away sometime before?
Oh, his father died when my husband was about 18 months old.
Mm.
So he really never knew
He never knew his father.
No. So see, his mother was all that...
and she never remarried?
No, she never did remarry. She was a school teacher, and then he finished at Clemson, and of course then he taught agriculture. So...
Now, who taught agriculture?
My husband.
Your husband did?
William McCutchen. Called him Bill.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And he went to Clemson?
Uh-huh.
And then he taught at Clemson?
Taught at Pinewood, and I think he taught in Sumter while he taught agriculture.
Mm-hmm. And he left that to become an insurance salesman?
Yeah.
Why?
I guess he was just getting tired and wanted to try something else. Branch out in another field.
Mm-hmm. Did he ever farm?
Oh, yes, we had a farm. We're still out there, and I still own the property. I rented it out to somebody else that farms it. D.A. White, I don't know if you know. Davy White, his father, D.A.
I know.
You know D.A. Well, Dave is the one that rents the land from me. Bull Berry used to rent it, but then I think he cut back on his farm.
Yeah, I think he has.
And so anyway, Davy wanted to rent it, so which we did.
Now, was your husband own the farm at the time when you married him?
Yes.
So he already had the home, and
He had the home, he had the farm.
so you never had a home of your own?
No, because we rented when we lived in Pinewood.
Mm-hmm.
That was it. But, I feel like this is my own home.
It's your home now.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, that's important, because a lot of young ladies in your time frame never had a home of their own.
Well, I said, Greg, my son said to tell you that I was almost like the Bible story about Ruth and Naomi in the Bible. I was, in Sunday school, and I was about like 5 years old. And the Sunday school teacher told the story, about Ruth and Naomi. And I thought it was the sweetest story, and it just impressed me so much. So when my sister was born, I was 7 years old, I asked my mother, I said, can I name her Ruth? We had nobody in the family named Ruth, and she said, yes. So we named her Ruth. And so then my son said, well, it's just like the reverse, said that Ruth's mother-in-law, left, and she told the daughters to go back, to their families, but said that, and that was kind of my situation, but Ruth, stayed with Naomi, but said, now this was Naomi, and I stayed on up here with my mother-in-law, after my husband died. I said, well, she was just a lovely person, and she loved my 3 children. See, she only had the one, so I said I couldn't deprive her of taking those children away from her, which I didn't want to anyway.
Tell me the story of Ruth and Naomi as you remember it.
Well, she was married, Naomi's son. Naomi had 2 sons, and I can't even remember the name of the other sister. She wasn't a sister, she was a sister-in-law of Ruth, in the Bible. And they lived, and then those 2 sons died. Of course, Naomi's husband had died, and then when both sons died, she told him, she says, you just go ahead and leave me and go back to your people, because they were of a different, culture, I guess you'd say, than what Naomi was. And she says, I'm too old to have any more children, and if I did, that y'all would be too old, to marry them by the time they got to marrying age. So she says, you go back to your family. Well, the other sister, she said, no. Both of them said, we're going to go with you, going to stay with you. So finally, she said, no, go on back. So the other daughter-in-law, she lived. And Ruth says, no, said, I'm going to stay with you, Naomi. And she followed her. And they went to this other place, and that's when she met, I think it was Boaz, you know, that was their rich kind of relative. And I think Naomi was kind of hoping they would marry, which they did, and then they had children. So I said everything worked out good, you know, for them.
And didn't Ruth say to Naomi, your people shall be my people,
That's
and your
right.
country will be my country?
Yeah.
Very good. So you had 3 children?
Yes.
Did all of them go to college?
Oh, 3 of them. Elizabeth went to Winthrop, and Martha started at Winthrop. That's the youngest daughter. She finished at Francis Mary. And Greg went to Winthrop, which was a 2-year college, and then he transferred. At that time, it was just 2 years. They didn't have, you know, a 4-year college, but it was 4-year now, and he transferred to Francis Mary. So I was happy I was able to give all them 3, you know, education. I mean, college education.
Yes, that's very important.
And you did this all on your nursing salary? Now, your mother-in-law lived how long with you?
She died in 1976.
And you moved to Bishopville at 52, so
52.
from 52 to about 25 years.
But during that time, she worked as a secretary for Hill Plumbing Company. Do you remember the
Mhm.
Hill Plumbing Company? And she worked there, can't remember how many years, but she worked, of course, I mean, she shared the expenses of the house with us, you know, like light bills and things that way, and maybe telephone. I'd pay for the groceries and you know, the upkeep on the car and buying gasoline and buying food and things that way. And then paying for my help to take care of the children while I could work at the hospital. So I said we had a very pleasant relationship, and I really missed her, you know, after she passed away.
What was your mother-in-law's name?
Maddie McCutchen.
I recognize that.
She was Maddie Lanham from Edgefield. She was originally from Edgefield, and she came up here to teach school, and that's where she met her husband.
Now, who did the cooking?
When you mean after I was up here?
Mm-hmm.
Well, we had that cook that helped, because see, my mother-in-law was working, and but most of the time I would get up and fix breakfast before I'd go to work. And then I would always fix supper, because she just kind of let me, like, take over the household responsibilities. I mean, she didn't try to force herself on me or anything. But she always would want to wash the dishes at night, which I said, well, she said, you've done the cooking. I said, now you let me do cleaning up of the dishes. So she said, you go ahead and do whatever you want to do. So I'd leave her in the kitchen to clean up, you know, at night time.
Now, the furnishings in the house, they were your mother-in-law's?
And mine combined.
And yours?
Yes.
Combined.
Yeah, combined. Some of her things she wanted to get rid of, so which we did. And then I still have, you know, some things that she had left. But most of the things that I have in the house now is what I accumulated over the years.
What kind of pets did your children have?
They didn't care much for pets. I grew up with cats and dogs, but I think they may have had a dog at one time. And you know, where we live on that street, and I think it got killed. And that was just devastating to them, so we just didn't try to get them a pet after that for long.
So you raised these 3 children without a male being around the house.
That's right.
You 2 ladies did all of this.
You did a good job, too.
You know. So, and you still drive a car today?
Yes. I don't drive out of town because I had a little wreck last year in March, and I don't know, it just made me so nervous and everything. And so Dr. Pate, that's my family doctor, he told me, he said, well, don't try to drive out of town, but said you can still drive around town. So, I mean, which is good that I came here this morning, I didn't have to get somebody to bring me, go to the grocery store, and go get my gasoline, and I can go to church and go to, you know, my meetings and, you know, go visit some of my friends. But all that's right here in this Bishop area that I do.
But raising 3 young children, did you take them on vacations?
Oh yeah, when I had a vacation every summer, we would always go to Pinewood and spend that time with my parents.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I mean, I would just see them about twice a month while I was working. And that would be on weekends when I'd have like every other weekend off. So, I mean, I enjoyed getting down there and, you know, being with them and getting away from my cooking. Everything. Having some of my mother's good food.
Did you ever really travel with the children? Get in the car and drive off?
Well, we'd go, you know, sometimes to the beach on vacation, because that's where they want to go, you know, have children.
Of course.
Like that beach. And I even chaperoned 1 or 2 house parties for Elizabeth and her crowd when she was in high school. And
But you would go to the beach and rent a house?
yeah, I think we rented, didn't y'all have a house down there?
Yes.
I think we rented y'all's house.
You probably did.
Yeah, that was at what? Oh, was it
Crescent Beach.
Crescent Beach. Yeah, we rented
Mhm.
that one. Yeah. And I haven't had a house party of teenage girls. I mean, I had a time with them because I was the only, you know, adult. But I said, well, it's no use. They know what they're supposed to do. If they can't do it, well, that's just it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it wasn't that terrible, now was it?
Well, I mean, you know how some of them like to experiment, and so I wasn't wanting any of that responsibility on me. But I just told, and Greg went with us. He was there because he took a car and this friend of his, and we had, I think it was what they called the maid's room, wasn't it, downstairs?
Mm-hmm.
And that's where they stayed, in the maid's quarters, Greg and Jean. And so anyway, they kind of tried to help me keep them straight. But they took turnabout cooking while we were there. I mean, I didn't have to prepare, you know, all the meals for them, because they had their little schedule made out, who was going to do what, you know, like breakfast and dinner. And a lot of times they'd go out, you know, at night and maybe get something to eat, and we wouldn't have to fix a big meal.
But those young ladies were just following what y'all did when you were younger, right?
Yeah, I guess
Maybe
so.
that's what's worried her.
Yeah. I said that was back in the 60s when that was happening. And that was my first introduction to pizza. I had never had any pizza. And I remember Pam Brannon, you know, Hattie Brannon's daughter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's Bubba's aunt.
Is that right?
Uh-huh.
Well, anyway, she was on the same house party that I was chaperoning. And it was her turn, I think, you know, and somebody else to fix a meal. And I guess it was supper. And she fixed a pizza. And I thoroughly enjoyed that. I said that was the first time that I had, you know, eaten anything like that. But it was really good.
What was different about it?
Well, I mean, pizza's different from just eating grits and eating vegetables and biscuits and meat.
I guess
and
it
things
would
like
be.
that. Yes, altogether different. But it was, you know, a different taste, and I enjoyed that.
And she made it from scratch.
Yeah, she made it from scratch as far as I can remember.
She must have been a good cook.
Yeah, I think she was. Because I don't think they had pizzas going that much, you know, back in the 60s.
No, I don't think
Yeah,
Pizza
I mean, they
Hut.
don't have like Pizza Huts and things that way.
Did you eat shrimp in those days?
Yes, whenever we were at the beach, we eat shrimp and oysters.
Did you go crabbing with
No,
them?
I never did anything like that.
And you bought the oysters and the shrimp. You didn't go
Yeah.
oystering or
No,
shrimping.
no, we didn't go out getting it.
No. Now, what other type of interesting experiences do you remember about living in Bishopville? Was it a good hospital?
I thought it was good
I
at that
thought it was
time.
good.
Yeah,
Yes.
it was
I
very
hated
good.
to see it close.
Yeah. And we had good doctors. We had one surgeon. That was
Dr. Farber.
Dr. Farber. And Dr. Dennis and Dr. Denny, and I know Dr. Simmons, you remember, he was there, and then Dr. Hunt came. And of course, you remember, I think you remember Dr. Wilder.
No.
He may have been here before your time. Because I think he didn't practice very long after I started work up there, and I think he retired, and then I think later he died. But those are, and Dr. Springs, I don't know if you remember him. You remember Dr. Springs? and he was Sheriff Wild, and he left and went to North Carolina. And I said, he happened to be the doctor at Wingate College. So I said he had to treat, I think Martha, she fell down the steps and broke her ankle, while she was up there. And so he put on a cast, and I wasn't satisfied with the cast when I brought her home. So I told Dr. Fowler, I said, Dr. Fowler, please look at this cast and see what you think in the x-ray. He took the cast off and put another one on, and it healed up all right. But, some doctors you have confidence in and some you don't.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, he was just one I just didn't feel that.
Dr.
confidence.
Farber was a good doctor,
Oh,
a good
yeah.
surgeon.
He sure was. Very good.
Have you been up to the hospital building now, recently?
You mean since they've converted it to
Mhm.
that Cottonwood Villa?
Mhm.
No, I haven't been in there since then. I guess we fixed up real nice. Have
Yes,
y'all seen
I was there last Christmas.
it? Oh, you were?
The music club sang.
Oh,
It's
oh.
very nice.
Oh, well, good.
When you were there was no air conditioning.
Yeah, they put it in before I left. We had air conditioning. You're talking about at the hospital?
At the hospital.
Yeah, in Bishopville.
Mhm.
Oh, yes, we had air conditioning. And just trying to think that... and we had a generator, out in the back. Sometimes if the electricity, the regular electricity we lost that, they could turn that on so that we would still have electricity, to go ahead
Mhm.
and do whatever treatments or anything. Or,
That was almost a necessity.
yeah, that's
I would
right.
think.
I have that.
Did you always shop in Bishopville, or did you go to Florence or Sumter to shop?
As long as Stokes was open, I went to Bishopville, and that was, a real good dress shop here. And then I shopped some at Ginsburg's, but then I started going out of town, either Sumter or Columbia. And sometimes I didn't shop that much in Florence, but I have shopped the clothes over in Florence.
Well, we also had Belk's and B.C.
Yeah,
Moore's,
that's right. We had all those other two stores.
jewelry stores.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've lost a lot.
We certainly have.
Now, what was the best holiday you had with the children?
I don't know. I just can't think of any particular one that more outstanding than the others.
Was Christmas always a big time?
Oh yeah, Christmas was a big time. Of course, sometimes I had to work Christmas Day. You couldn't always
Yes.
be off. And if you were off Thanksgiving, you worked Christmas Day. If you were off Christmas Day, you worked Thanksgiving. So the Christmases that I had off, I enjoyed, being with them.
Did you do anything special at Christmas time with the children?
No, they would just, they'd get their Santa Claus and open that. And I would we'd go to Pinewood, and visit with my mother, and I would always take my mother-in-law, because I wasn't going to leave her to spend Christmas
Of course
by
not.
herself. And she, got along real well with my family and everything. So anyway, we'd do that. And then later, after all the children got grown, my parents would come up and spend Christmas with me, but they couldn't drive. They had gotten, where they couldn't drive. And so Greg would go and pick them up, and they'd come spend the day with us, and then he'd take them back that afternoon to Pinewood, because they wanted to be in their own beds at night. I told them they could spend the night with me, but no, they never would. They wanted to
go
get
home.
back home.
Well, as long as they were within close driving distance.
Yeah, that's right.
Did you take any long distance vacations with children?
I think just to the beach in Pinewood, and then we went to the mountains and went to Gatlinburg, I believe, on a trip, and that was about, the length of our trips.
Now, as a nurse at the hospital, did you have to, what type of hours? Did you have to work the night shift also?
Before I got to be the director of nurses, I had to do the rotating shifts. That was 7 to 3, 3 to 11, and 11 to 7. You know, just
You just rotated off.
Yeah, that's 4 weeks at a time, each shift.
Was it hard to go from a day to a night as far as sleeping was concerned?
Yes, it was real hard. I mean, because after you work, of course, we had the 8-hour shifts when I worked, and that wasn't as bad. When I got ready to leave about the last year, they extended the hours, and it was 12 hours. And we worked 3 days, 12 hours, off 4 days, come back and work 4 days and off 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, that's hard, you know, working night shift like that. And,
Well, you'd have to have some days off in between a night shift to let your body
that's right, kind
get
of
accustomed
to it.
Why did they change the shifts from 8 hours to?
I don't know, but they were still on 12 hours when I left in 77. I don't know whether they stayed on that or not, but a good many hospitals I know do work. I mean, I know at Palmetto Richland in Columbia, my granddaughter-in-law, she worked over there, and they had to work the 12-hour shifts. And it just seemed like they got along all right, but you always just seemed like coming there because you had to come early and get your report. By the time you got ready to report to the oncoming shift, sometimes it would take you maybe 30 or 45 minutes, and you'd just be working, you know, almost an extra hour with that 12-hour shift. Getting
long hours.
Yeah, it is long hours.
Now, in the Army, you wore a dress or a skirt and blouse.
Yeah, you saw my own uniform. You had
Yeah.
a regular dress.
Right. And
But
then,
when we were off duty, then we could wear. It was a skirt that we had. We didn't wear pants, except those fatigues when I was at basic training.
and you wore a hat
You mean without dress uniform?
with your uniform.
Yes,
But you had a nursing hat that you wore also when you were on duty?
yeah. Got that in that picture too.
Right. Now, and when you came to civilian life, you still wore basically a skirt and blouse and a hat.
No, we had red, white nurses' uniforms, white caps,
And white caps.
white hose, and white shoes.
Mm-hmm.
Changed from the Army.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And the white hose that you had to have the seam straight up the back of the leg.
That's right.
You know, and that was an issue in the Army also, was it not?
Yes.
Make sure that the seams
Seams were straight.
the seams were straight.
I'm glad the seams are gone.
Yeah, I am too.
Did you have gloves that went with that uniform?
I can't remember. I'm not real sure. I don't know.
Okay. You wore a name tag with the uniform.
Yes.
And what else did you wear with the uniform?
Well, we had our medical caduceus, then we had our
The what now?
medical caduceus. You know what you wear. You've seen that. You know, it's like kind of the snake wrapped around the pole.
Oh,
Okay.
yes.
I think if you looked at that picture, one of the pictures I had there, and then, you know, my lieutenant bars, we had that on our dress uniform. Of course, we had to wear it on while we were on our nursing, on the nurse's uniform. We, you know, had to have it so they would know who was what.
And you said your nurses' uniforms were a brown and white stripe.
Brown, white stripe. Kind of like a sapsucker material.
Yeah. So they weren't solid white. They had the stripe in it.
No, I mean, you wouldn't know it was anything like see somebody walking if you didn't know they were in service, that was a nurse.
Now in the Army, you wore everything on the right side. And when you came back to civilian life, it went to the left side.
Yeah.
Was there any reason for that? I didn't know that.
I don't know. You know what it is?
Well, we always shake hands with our right hand. So you can read the right
Right
side.
side.
This is why
I
they
see.
do that.
I see.
You're always supposed to put a name tag on the right side, not the left side, so that you can read it.
know that.
Yeah, I didn't know that either.
But now you were a nurse until 19.
Oh, you mean when I finished up
Mhm.
at the hospital? Yeah, 1977.
1977.
December 1977.
And you were, what position did you hold at that time?
I was, the director of nurses. But I was just, kind of getting tired, and I felt like it was just so confining, and I wanted to get out and travel some. So after I retired, I did, travel some, with these tour groups, different places, which I've had, some nice trips.
Okay. Let's stop 1 minute here. Explain this photograph to us.
This is a picture of our graduating class at Toomey Hospital in 1936. And we had 6 nurses to graduate, and we have Miss Snyder, who was the director of nurses, in the background. And you see the length of our dresses that we were wearing at that back in 36.
And that's you on the right. You as a second lieutenant.
Second lieutenant.
And this photograph was taken where?
That was at Camp Rock, Alabama.
Is you?
In the nurse's uniform at Camp Rock.
This is Camp Rucker in Alabama.
That's right.
This was also taken at Camp Rucker?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Tell us about this picture.
This was a picture taken at Camp Rucker, and these are some of the patients that were ambulatory, and they were walking around, and one of them, the patients had a camera, and they wanted me to sit with them for our picture to be taken together.
Another group of patients, but they're all dressed the same.
That's kind of their pajamas that they had, like in the hospital for the ambulatory patients to wear.
Group does not have that uniform on.
No, see, some of them got bathrobes on. Read for us on it.
Yes, ma'am.
Lieutenant Naomi H. Griffin, N 765-834.
Now
This was just our ID bracelet.
Now you had to wear the ID bracelet all the time?
Well, I think I wore it most of the time. I mean, can't rough. I mean, more gentle. That's the full dress uniform, and I think this one.
Now where are you in this picture?
Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm number 5 from the left end. Just hold it flat there.
Mm-hmm. So, and what type of hat was this you're wearing?
Well, it was just a cloth hat, just the fatigues, just match what we had on. See, we still had to wear our insignia. We couldn't just be sitting up there.
No, you had to have.
Regardless of that.
Regardless, you had to have that on.
Yeah, had to have
Now, this is the only time you wore pants.
That's right. You see, these are some of our instructors, those men, and then the 3 ladies that have on skirts.
They were instructors also?
These 6 that are sitting in the middle on the first row.
Okay, let's look at the other picture now. And you're located in the same position again.
That's right.
Did they tell you to go back and sit in the same place?
I guess they did.
Did you prefer the fatigues?
And that's what we did our physical exercise with every morning, with those fatigues. We didn't, go out with your nurse's uniform, thing that way. Of course, we wore them just about all day long because when we weren't working in the hospital, And it was no use to be dressed up.
That's right.
And we were in classes, and they'd give you some breaks, in between classes, and we'd go sit out. And the ones that smoked cigarettes, they'd smoke their cigarette, take the break, and, or have a Coca-Cola or whatever, we had for refreshments that time.
Now, what type of exercises did you do in those fatigues?
Well, I don't remember exactly. I mean, it was just, basic training things that we had to do with our arms, and then they had a time teaching us how to salute, get that salute correct. And then they took us on, marches, like I said. We have been on those 5-mile marches with packs on our back, but they would give us a break. We didn't have to march steady 5 miles before we had our break.
Did you ever master the salute?
I think I did. I don't know that I could do it now, but I mean, we had to. We couldn't pass. And you had to keep doing it till you got it right.
Did you learn how to click your heels?
I don't remember us having to do that.
Mm-hmm. What did your husband think of you having been in the Army?
Oh, I think he was real proud of me.
I know Greg is.
Oh,
Now, Greg is your son, right?
that's right. You never have met Greg.
I know. So, he's been very proud of you, hasn't he?
Oh, yes. I think all three of them got $2.
Well, I don't know your daughters, but I know Greg.
Okay.
In Columbia, and he checked me out. In a week's time, they were operating on me. And I said, some of them were just amazed because I was 81 years old, and they just couldn't believe that, I could go through a double bypass.
Well, you must have been in good physical condition then.
The other doctor did not want to operate on you at all?
The first doctor was just a cardiologist. He wasn't a surgeon. He didn't even consult with a surgeon. That was his opinion.
That was his opinion.
Yeah, and I mean, he talked so ugly to me, and he told me, he said, you can go home. Now, in other words, you can go home to die in 11 months.
Well, some doctors just don't have any bedside manner whatsoever.
And so I just told my children, they brought me the supper, and I had that stress test, and they had kept me in that area all that day. And I was tired, and I was worn out because I hadn't had anything but I think just maybe like something like, not a donut, something similar to that, and something to drink. And I was so hungry and so weak, so when he told me that, I just pushed my tray, and I said, just get me out. I said, just go and check me out. Because, see, he said you can go on home to die. And that was it. And said, come back to see me, I think, in a couple of months. So I never did see him anymore. I went, got another doctor, and I started with him. So I said, I'm still here. It'll be 5 years this May since I've had it.
You seem to be doing fine.
So, yeah, I'm glad, thankful for every day.
Your son lives with you now?
No, he's married and has his own home.
Okay. So you live alone?
I live alone by myself.
By yourself?
By myself. Yeah, I'm happy and contented, and I feel perfectly safe where I am.
Yeah, well, and Greg told me he goes by to see you every day.
He comes every day and calls every night to check on me. And Tom Drayton, he's been real nice. He's told me several times that he's given me his unlisted number because he rents part of my land, behind the house. And he says, anytime, Miss Naomi, that you need anything, just don't hesitate to call me day or night. And I said, you appreciate, having people like that are thoughtful.
Well, Tom lives in the White House. Now, which house?
Tom lives in the White House. His son Wesley lives in the house, the brick house.
Oh, is that where Wesley lives? I didn't know that.
Yeah, Wesley, after he finished, I guess.
I knew he finished.
He's working at the nursery farm.
And then where is your house?
My house is kind of sitting right in the nursery. It's that yellow house.
The yellow house
wood
is your house. Yes.
Yeah, that's
with the brown trim. That's your house.
Yeah, that's my house.
Well, I go by it every day then because I live out a little bit farther.
I said, he told me some disturbing news yesterday, though. He said that the CP&L are going to have a meeting with them. It's something about, I think, making a circular drive on Castle Street. Have you heard anything about that?
No, I haven't.
And that they're going to take down 6, I guess it's telephone poles. And one of them is near me, you know, where I've got that big magnolia tree in the yard, and it's so pretty. I mean, you know, when it blooms and smells so good. And he says, I'm afraid they might be going to have to cut that tree down. I said, oh, I just hate that. He said, well, maybe they can trim it. And said, there's one, I think, right there near Wesley's house. And they're going to have to do that. And I think 3 or 4 in his nursery they're going to do. So anyway, they got a meeting Monday morning at 8:30 at his office. And he wanted me to come if I could. And I said, well, I have a doctor's appointment at 9:15. And he said, well, maybe Greg could come. So Greg's going and meet with him, and I don't know what the outcome's going to be. But I just hate to lose that magnolia tree. He said, and then, you know, they're not going to have much front yard. So I'm not sure what they're going to do. If they're going to take, you know, extend the highway kind of into my front yard or what.
I don't know, but you know, ever since the prison and now the high school are out that way, they've always talked about, you know, maybe 4 lane, and because that would take some of our front yard too, depending upon. So I just don't know.
But, so I don't know what the outcome's going to be. I just said that I just hate to think about that. And he said they were going to have to change his fence. You know, he's got a fence between the nursery and my yard. So
I wonder what all this is going to be for.
Oh, he might mean the fence that's right there on the sidewalks. Maybe that's what he's talking about.
I don't know, but I
so
wonder
I guess it might take some of his shrubbery up then.
I wonder why is CP&L having to do all this?
I have no idea.
I guess Greg will find out at the meeting.
Yeah, Greg will find out on that Monday.
Progress, I guess.
Yeah.